Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman and I'm the streamer, and we work on a Django app here. We're going to continue to do that tonight, and I'll walk you through my process of what I've got going on. I'm building a homeschool application for my family, and I know quite a bit about Django because I've been doing it for years and years, so I share what I know. So you may feel free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development as we get going here. Before we get started, I'll leave you some notes that you can keep track of me at a future time. There's a link up above to my website where I write a lot about Django and Python. I have a GitHub profile as MB Lehman, a Twitter profile, and they're the same name. A Patreon account if you want to support me financially. I'm MB Lehman there as well. And a mailing list and a bunch of different ways. There's also a Discord link below if you want to join in, ask questions there. I check it periodically and can engage with you in some kind of longer form questions that don't fit into Twitter tweets and that sort of stuff. I do want to thank my patrons that I do have who are supporting me. They help make podcasts possible that I do and all sorts of other content. So thank you to Rob and Rupert, my superhero level patrons, and Abdulaziz, Patrick, Mark, Eric, and Ahmed. Appreciate all you do for me and throwing a few dollars my way. I'm really grateful for that. So tonight, what are we going to do? We are going to continue on with a milestone that I've been working on. And we're getting close to the end, as you can see here. I've opened it up, and we're going to tackle probably at least one, maybe two of these things. Excuse me, frog in my throat. But before we do that, I got a request from Rupert, one of the patrons, asking me if I would do a little bit to document how to get started on the project. Because if you look at things, it is very scant on detail because this was mostly for me when I started. So what we're going to do is extend the README so that if you want to follow along at home, you can do that. You can run some set of commands, and I'll explain which commands I use and why, and then you can decide to try it out for yourself. So let's go to the terminal and get started on this README. I'm going to have the README here, and I'm going to have a terminal to the side here. And I've already tweaked the README just a little bit to add a header section to it, and we'll get going from there. So when I think about an application, the first thing I think about is I need an environment. I need a place where I can store the code. So that's the critical part, or one of the critical parts. I also am going to make an assumption that you are on an operating environment that is similar to mine. I'm not going to put in the instructions for Windows. I know that's maybe not fair to everybody, but a lot of these commands that I'm going to describe have good Windows equivalents that can be looked up in the documentation, and I don't want to repeat the whole world. So I'm going to take this from a Mac OS centric point of view. This should also work just as easily for Linux because it should be the same commands. It's the same kind of terminal experience, but that's where I'm going to go from. So to start, we need a virtual environment. We want to create a virtual environment. A virtual environment, if you don't know, is a place to store Python packages. And there's a number of ways to make them. I have started to lean most heavily towards using the package, the module, that is built into the standard library. Once upon a time, you used to have to use something like virtualenv. There are plenty of other tools as well, pipenv, venv wrapper, a bunch. But I find that using the one from the standard library is a pretty good experience. So what we need to do, and in fact, why don't we simulate if I was starting this from the beginning. So I'm going to deactivate my current virtual environment and create a new one. So I would run a command like python -m to execute a module, and I want to say venv. And in fact, I want to make sure that it's Python 3 because I have both on my system here because this isn't getting to be an older computer at this point. And so I want to say venv, and then I want to create a virtual environment. And since this is a second one that I'm just simulating for the purposes of putting the docs together here, I'm going to give it a number 2 on it. If I was doing this on my own, I would not do that. So what that'll do is create a directory on the machine, and we can see it if I do a git status. So there's a new directory now called VM2. And that thing is the thing that we're going to use to store all the packages. So create a virtual environment is the first thing to do, and I'm going to repeat the command here and say venv, and that should create the virtual environment. And then we want to activate it. Activate the virtual environment. And activating it, just what that does is it tells your shell, which is the thing your terminal is running in, to modify some paths of where to look for things like a Python executable. So if we do source venv2 bin activate, then what we'll notice here is that the program is modifying my shell paths, but VM2 in the front. And now if I do something like the which command and say which Python, it's going to point to a Python that it finds in this bin directory in the virtual environment. So that gives you kind of a namespace to contain all of your code. Everything that's going to be executing will be put inside of this virtual environment. So the next command is bash, and then source venv bin activate. So now our virtual environment is ready to go, and we need to install the packages. So I'm using a couple of requirements.txt files. One of them is to hold my development packages, and one of them is to hold my actual application packages. And we need to do both if we're going to be operating in this environment. So I'm going to say pip install -r. That -r flag is to say it expects a requirements file, which is a very basic style file that has packages 1 per line. And I want to install the developer requirements first. So I'm going to do pip install -r, and most of this stuff should be cached locally. There might be a couple things that are not. That's curious that it's taking a while there. I would expect this to like fly through, but I guess maybe there's upgrading some new packages that I hadn't anticipated. So this gets all of our developer tools, and it's going to grind away a little bit on here. Maybe there's some C extensions, I'm not sure. Because there's some stuff I didn't anticipate running there. But you can see it dumped out a bunch of information, but we'll add this line that says install developer and application packages, and we'll put both lines there. We'll say pip install r requirements dev txt, and the other one we want is requirements txt. And once we do that, we should have everything that we need to get the thing going. Okay, so those are going to run, and that prepares our environment to run all of the code. The next thing that is a little bit outside of the scope of what I want to cover in the README is to say to get the Heroku CLI tools. So when I am running my make command, that if you've ever watched my stream before, I run all the time, if we look at that make file, really what it's doing is running the first target, and the first target happens to be called local, and it's using Heroku local. Heroku local is a tool that comes from the Heroku CLI, that's the Heroku command, and local knows how to read that proc file that's in my directory here. So if I do a bat on the proc file, then you can see this is the content of that, and it will start the gunicorn web server. So that's how things get started when I'm running the local development server. So that's the other bit. So we'll say install Heroku Cli Tools. And maybe I can at least link to that. That might be handy for somebody. I can do that much. Heroku Cli install. Okay, cool. This is the right page, I think, to link to. And this is a markdown page, so we'll make this a markdown link. Like so. Okay. And then the other bit that's going to be needed before someone can run the local stuff is to migrate and create a migration. Today I'm still using SQLite for this local development, so there's really no extra configuration. There's no like Postgres setup or any of that stuff. That's stuff that I am just leaving to Heroku for now. If there comes a future where I have to use Heroku or Postgres specific features, I'll have to change things. But for now, it should be pretty straightforward to set up. So everything should be ready to go, and we should be able to run a command like, well, I'm just going to list out the manage command just to see it working, because I don't actually need to migrate anything right now. So if someone's starting from scratch, though, they say you could, I'll say bootstrap the local database, and that's going to be using the migrate command, which will look like manage.py migrate. And that should create all of the local data that's needed. And then we'll finally say start the local web server, which would be that make target that I have. So this one's going to be easy, just make. Okay, so that is the flow. And if I run it here, this virtual environment 2 should have everything installed and ready to go. So you can see what it did. So make is echoing out the command that it's running. So it runs Heroku local. Heroku local reads from that proc file, like I mentioned, and is starting up gunicorn as the web server and serving it on port 5000. I guess I should add, if you're like creating data for the first time, you might want a super user. So create a super user account, and that would be another bash, and we'll say manage.py create super user. The super user account just gives you access to everything. It hooks into the user account system in Django and gives it all the permissions. So once you have that account, you can log in, you can go to the Django admin, you can do all the stuff that you need to do. So I think that covers all of the setup that I want to have in this README, and is at least a place where people can find this stuff. So I'm going to deactivate this virtual environment because we don't need it, and I'm going to go ahead and remove it because I've got the other one. So my flow usually is just, if I'm not in this directory, I keep my terminals open for almost forever. So I really rarely have to do this. And I've got so much bash history. I actually use ZSH, so I type SO and I hit up, and it will take me to my most recent source commands, and I can activate my virtual environment there. So that's my flow for getting back in there. Some people have tools that will like you CD into the directory and it will automatically do that. I used to do that, and this has been so easy that even that is like, why bother with all the extra tool setup? So what do we have now? We've got a modified README. It's got all these setup instructions. I feel like that's good. So Rupert, I hope that it helps if you're watching this later and are looking for README instructions. Here they are. Update the README to document how to get started. And if you're watching the stream and you have any questions about what I just did and anything wasn't clear, I was telling my wife during dinner that like this is stuff that I've done so many times on so many different projects. I could probably literally do this in my sleep. Figuratively, literally, I don't know, maybe literally. but that it's something that's easy for me to do. So I take it for granted that I know about certain things in the Python ecosystem. So if you have any questions about what I just did, anything that truly doesn't make sense, the chat is open. And as long as you can be civil, which most people are able to do that, I'm happy to chat about it. Okay, let's shift gears then. Got some setup instructions done. Let's talk about the next thing. And let's see if I formatted stuff, I guess. One little test. Oh, I didn't push it. Let's push it up to the main repository. Great. And refresh, and here's some commands. It looks like everything that we might want to have in there. So if someone wants to get started, if you've never tried this before, I have, you can do a clone, fork, whatever you want to do, and give it a shot. And if I messed up anything, or there's things along the way that didn't quite work out the way you expected to, I'm open to doing the feedback here and fixing it up. Okay, let's return to this milestone, this user feedback round. My goal today is to at least do 98 and maybe do 107. I guess I clicked that by accident. And while I'm thinking about it, my wife gave me a better name for this. She wanted to call this a progress report. That's the main name that will be more meaningful to her. So I want to capture that. So one of them is a bug, one of them is a new feature, and the bug will hopefully be easy, so that we have plenty of time to work on a new feature. But I'm going to stick with my usual flow, which is to write a test proving the failure case. I did go through and poke at my app in the last couple of weeks and confirm that, in fact, this is not behaving the way that she wants it to. And we can write a test proving that it behaves in that bad way, and then we can write the code that'll fix it up. So let's describe the problem. Remember, this is a homeschool application, and the modeling of this, which we haven't taken a look at in a while, but we can open it up. Let's blow this up a little bit. So the modeling of this, come on now, where's the hand thing? No, I don't want that. I want the hand. I don't want to draw anything. What in the world? Okay, whatever. It's not going to grab, but I can use the scroll wheel. So the modeling of this thing is we have a school, and every school will have multiple school years naturally, because I have kids that will go from grade to grade as they grow. So the school year is the bucket to put in all of the grade levels, which have courses and stuff. Part of that process is that a grade might have a course that only runs for a portion of the year. Let's say my wife wants to do something that is a course that only runs for a semester. Rather than modeling in like date ranges of when a course could run, what we are instead deciding to do is like she's going to be basically able to turn a course off and on. Maybe in the future that'll change, but she wants to be able to turn it off and on by checking if any of the days of the week are running. So let's look at that to make sure that that's really clear, because it will be critical to understanding the actual problem that's going on. We're going to load up the app here and look at a school year. And so we've got this reading 2, for example. And the school year for this school year, well, the days that the school year runs on, we can see, is Monday through Friday. That's when my kids do school. So when a class is not going to be running, she wants to be able to just turn those days off for each course. So let's say that art, well, I don't know, reading 2, let's just pick the easiest one that's right here. Say that that's not going to be running at all. So in order to make that not running, like maybe it's something that is only starting for the second half of the year or whatever, she wants to be able to uncheck them all and then update it. Now the course is not running. So if we return to the week view, you can see that reading 2 no longer appears at all. And that's what she wants. That's actually the desired behavior for courses from now and into the future. So if she looks ahead, she wants to be able to still see those things. Okay, but the problem though is that this also applies for stuff in the past. And that is a problem if she wants to be able to review historical data. Maybe she just finished a course and she's turning it off for the rest of the school year, but she wants to be able to go to past weeks and see it. So that's the bug, in that I did what she asked. I made it hide because she doesn't want extra courses appearing if they're not running. And that makes perfect sense. But if content is completed for that course, she wants to be able to see it. So that is important. So that's what we need to fix to make sure that when we probably should present. We can both fix this with a test and also come back and check it once it's done. So let's go back to that reading class, reading 2, and there's a bug too. Look at that. On the school year, I need to have some kind of label for not running where the days are none. So I'm going to write that down now. So on school year page, have empty label when course isn't running. Okay, that's just a note, and I can clean that up later, but I want to capture that. Okay, so we want to have this thing have some material in it. So let's turn it back on and go back to the week view and come to the past. Okay, well, I didn't clear out anything. It's going to get a little annoying. We can massage this in the administrative tool. So let's mark this item right here, this first day, as done. How about that? So let's come in here and then I'm going to move the date of it so it's in the past. So we'll say the Canterbury Tales, we'll mark it as complete. And now if we return to the week, it should be grayed out because it's done. And it is. So I want to come into the administrative site, and that's considered when something is done. I've modeled it as coursework. So I want to come into the coursework, and I've got it here, and I'm just going to fudge it and move it back a few days to a different date. So let's move it to last week, Wednesday. Save it. So now, if we refresh the page, okay, now we've said that actually got finished last week. If we look to last week, now we've got this item here. Okay, so now I can actually demonstrate the bug. We can go back to the reading 2 class, and can't come through it here. We can turn it all off. And so now I think hopefully you can clearly see the scenario that I'm trying to solve. She wants to be able to see historical weeks, which is this. And when I refresh this page, reading 2 is going to disappear. And that's not what she wants. So it's gone. That's the problem. Okay, I probably beat that dead horse, but hopefully you get the idea at this point. And I had to really make that clear because this logic area is a trickier part of the code where this stuff all gets built, and I don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of code as we're looking at it. So we'll go into the core views where this comes from, and this is considered the app view because it's the main view of the app. It's where you are when you are logged in and you're at the root of the app. I even call it app. This is the page that it's going to put you at. So that's why it's named that way. And the thing that we're trying to do this is all built out from a schedule. That whole table is considered a schedule per student. So we get the schedules, and the schedules has as you can see here in the stock string, it has a schedule per each student. So I get through all the students for the user and build up a week schedule for them. So embedded in that week schedule is where the actual fix is. So I've made this a student model method. So we can go to the student model and get down into it. And here's the week schedule. And there's quite a few rules in here, because building this out appropriately for all the different kinds of conditions, all the different sorts of skipping and all this other kind of stuff is quite a bit of logic. But you can see that one good thing to observe here is that I extracted that logic out of the view as much as I can and moved it into a model. That makes it reusable, so that if I ever needed to get access to a student's schedule for a week in the future, I could do that, rather than having the logic forever locked into a view. Okay, so we're down here, and I think the problem is right here. I said naively, if the course is not running, so it's a property that I added to the course, and we can bring up the course model too to see both. And we have is running, and so if days of week is an integer field that uses masking, so it's going to be an integer comparison, and if it's equal to no days, which is a certain integer representation, basically 0. All the bits are flipped to 0, then the course isn't running. So this is the problem is it's not factoring in time here. It needs to factor in, is this a now or future week, or is this a past week? We only want to continue and skip the course if it is a current or future week. That's the extra condition that we need to have. And I need to load back into my memory and stare at this for a little bit of how I did the week calculation to know if this is in the past or the future. It might be as simple as a date comparison, but we needed to check on that. So we don't need the course model method anymore. That's there. I think hopefully you have an understanding of that. Just know that the property is doing the right thing of calculating whether the days are there or not. And we can add, it's probably 2 tests, frankly, because I have 100% coverage on this app, so there's already some test somewhere that is checking this continue statement, and we need 1 test, an additional test to cover when it should not be doing the continue, should be skipping that. It's actually considered branch coverage, but that's semantics. Okay, so let's look at these dates and see if we can understand this. We have the week dates for the school year and the week start date. Okay, so we've got the week start date, which I've created a week class that holds the start and end date, because it's something that I will be passing around a lot in this app. So it's got the start, it's got the end. I think I just set Monday and Sunday. So we have the start date that's what we need to compare to. This is interesting. This is actually really interesting, because this is not as easy as I would like it to be. Well, maybe it is. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Hold on a second. Okay. I'm definitely overthinking this. So we've got today. So I think the comparison is something like if we have to look if you're in the current week. And so today could be, like right now it's Wednesday. Current start of the week was Monday. So we can't just do a comparison of Monday, the week start date, against today. Or maybe we could. Dates, man. They're annoying to deal with sometimes. All right, let's rephrase this. Let's try and ask it in the form of a question. When do we skip a course? We want to skip a course when it's not running, but also the date comparison that we're talking about. But what is that date comparison? So this week start date could be like 2 weeks ago. It could be this week, could be weeks in the future. So I think what we really need is to use the end date. If we compare the week end date to today, then if the week end date is less than today, then I think that we should show the course data. So if we were really trying to figure out when we should skip, we need to invert that logic. So if the week end date is greater than today, and the course is not running, I think that's when we want to continue. Here's where I wish I had like easy drawing tools that I could show why I think this is true. But it kind of says that the week is bounded, and if the end date is already in the past, that's exactly the condition that we have over here, where the end date, Friday the 24th, is in the past. It's July 29th. Now, if we look at the current week, Friday the 31st is still in the future as of today. So that's how this makes sense to me. I think that's the right condition. And like I said, it's just a matter of getting the right bit of extra logic in there. And now we need to write the test for it. And in fact, I'm going to leave the solution version. I'm going to do some like test-driven development and leave what I think is the solution commented out for a moment and have it as it was originally, so that we can write the failing test and prove to ourselves that it's not right. And then we can write the next test that will satisfy the new design desire. So this is going to be where? One thing that I wish was possible to see quickly is which test is executing this line. And I know that I'm pretty sure the newest version of coverage has a database that has that information, but if I was to come over here and run make coverage right now, which will run the coverage checking, it is not going to tell me that. It's just going to say that the line is covered. And even if I were to take the coverage report, I think I should be able to do that by doing coverage HTML and opening HTML cov the index. That's right. Well, what's it doing here? That's curious. I guess because I tell it to exclude this stuff, it's not showing everything. It's kind of weird. That's not as useful as I wanted to be. I was hoping to show you the HTML that can show the files and show how they're like green, but it's not going to do that. Anyway, at either rate, it is. It doesn't show you which test did that, so we'd have to find which test it was. And maybe I can like do it in a very crude way by tossing in a print and then running the test suite with Verbose. Let's try that. And maybe there are multiple tests that try it. What test? That's what we're trying to find. And then we can run PyTest v2, I think. Am I making that up? Nope, that's not right. Verbose. Oh, you know, it's not going to work because it's going to suppress standard out. So even whenever you get a test that passes, it won't actually do the print. I don't know which. I think there's a PyTest flag that will show standard output. And maybe it's here, log print. We could try it. So we want verbose and log print. Nope, that's not it. No print logs. How about print logs? Nope. Well, shoot. Because I think I can put this stuff in the PyTest file. Maybe I have to. All right, let's try that. Let's go to the PyTest file. There's an ini file, and we can say log print and set it to true for a moment. And come over here and do the verbose. Is that going to work? Dang it. I didn't see a print on any of those, did you? Shoot. All right, well, we're going to have to track it down, the line that actually executes that. That's okay. I was hoping to have something fun to see. Sometimes you just got to play with stuff and do your best. So this is a student models method. So I imagine that the test that is actually doing the skipping is in the test models for the students app. So let's go over there. Students test models. And here's a week schedule with no tasks. Week schedule future. So you can see I've already got some tests for these different scenarios in here. What's the method name? Get week schedule. Get week schedule. Do I only have 2 tests for this? Really? All right, well, we're going to put it here. And it could be that this is tested by the core view, and it happens to be generating the schedule and going over a bunch of that stuff. That's also possible. But I think it makes the most sense to test this. I don't really want to become famous, so I don't need to buy followers. But thanks for the offer. What else we got here? Okay, I guess we'll spend a brief minute looking at the tests in the core to see if there's one that's obvious there. About no days. Do not show core. Ah, here it is, right here. So this is the scenario. All right, maybe this makes more sense to put it in this course, this view area. Yeah, clearly, Kazakh I'm being attacked. By bots or something. It's okay. I don't think they're going to be spammy or spammier than they already are. So I will leave them as they are. Okay. Let's try taking this same test, and we'll say, let's see, show course when no days in past. when the week is in the past, show the course, even if it's not running. Cool. That gets it going. I think a lot of the setup will remain the same. It'll just be about when we want to set the time. Because you can see that I'm like mocking the time here. I'm using time zone, which is an import in that core file, and it's setting the local date value, and I'm setting this to some particular time in the past. And then, actually this might break when I change this logic, because this is pinned to a date that's way in the past. It has no reference to now. So this might just blow up spectacularly. In fact, let's see. Let's just try it. Try this, the exact test without modification, see if it fails once we add this logic. Yep, it does. So we're gonna have to fix this test, I think, in order to get this working. It needs to be considered made relative to now. I need to like freeze time and make everything work from what it really is. Or I guess this course factory needs to be, or the grade level, something needs to be made relative to what things really are today. All right, so we've got let's stare at this a little bit longer. And in fact, let's also make sure that the test passes. Okay, it does pass, and it does break when I have the new logic in there. We got to figure out what broke about that. We can print out. How about let's see if we can get a little bit of diagnostic information about it. So I want to print out down here. Let's print. Whoops. The week end date and print today. We could debug this and that might be faster, but sometimes it's a nice crude looking at the print is convenient. Of course, that's not going to run because that's inside the if statement, so that was silly. Oops. Okay, try again. So it's saying that the week end date is the 24th. What? Why is it doing that? Okay. So in my, oh wow, there's even trickier cases here that we need to think about. Or like this test happens to fall on one of the most interesting date sets that can be. I've been thinking about this from the frame of reference of Monday through Friday. School year's Monday through Friday. You care about Monday through Friday. But look at this test. It's actually considering the weekend. So it's saying today is Sunday. What are you going to display? So what it's showing to me is that the week end date is not correct here, because I'm basing it based on what is the school days for this school year. If we looked back at when the school year runs, I said the school year runs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and my kids don't do school on the weekends. So week end date for a week is going to give me that Friday, which is why it was the 24th in the output, and the 26th was the Sunday, because that's what we pinned it to in the test. So really the comparison, this is actually good. This is a logic bug that we would have failed on. So we just happened to get the right thing. So really what we need to compare to is not the week end date, but the actual calendar end date for the week. So that should be the week, the Sunday. I think I have that in there because I've just for the sake of making this whole system easier, I've said that, you know, my weeks will always start on Monday and they will always end on Sunday. That's just the decision that I made about how I'm going to present the data. And I know that's not like universally true across the world. Some people think the start of the week is Monday. Some people think the start of the week is Sunday, depending on their calendar. But yeah, that's what we're doing here. So if we have week Sunday, and I think, will this pass now? No, it still fails. Well, okay. This is, what is this saying? Both the dates should be the same now. They're both the 26th. So I'm not considering the edge cases right here. So what do we want? If it is greater than or equal to, is that what we want? Like when do we want it to like not show that course? Maybe it is the weekend. Or sorry, that wasn't very clear. Maybe it is the weekend date. Maybe I'm coming back around to that. Because, all right, let's think about a real scenario. It's the end of the week, and at the end of, it also happens to be the end of a semester boundary. And my wife has decided, here's the weekend where I'm going to stop doing this course. And so it is, the course ended on Friday because that was the end of the school week. And on Saturday, she turned off the course all the days of the week. In that scenario, she still wants to see the past data. So week end date, when we skip it, week end date greater than today is still the right thing. And it just happens that this test data is testing that kind of weird condition where it should not be skipped. Right? Because it's finding data that it says it wasn't supposed to find. But I think this is actually reflective of the scenario that we're trying to test, where we do want to show that data. Now, had this flipped over to one more day, Monday, then I think that this would have been a scenario where it shouldn't have shown it. So that's probably the test. So it's almost like what the test that we're writing here, the existing test is for this new condition that we're trying to add, and we need to actually write the test that will show that it still skips it when it's the current week or the future. Okay. But I think that this logic is the correct logic for the reasons we just talked about. All right. Which means I think that this test is correct, but we need to pop in, well, it's a dictionary. It's something else. It's we got to put in course and a bunch of structure. So it's something like course. Start with that, and it's probably going to fail for other reasons. Test nearest verbose. Show me more. days. Maybe, because I have other stuff that's actually testing the content of the schedule. Maybe what we really want to do is say that the that courses is not empty. As or just this, not get rid of the not. Just assert that there's content in here, right? Because that will say this is going to resolve to that list, and that list has content in it, and that's the test. That's the case. So when the week is in the past, which it is, because even though it's like ended on a Friday, that's still what we want. Show the course even if it's not running. The course isn't running, and it's showing the course. So we're asserting that the schedule has something in that course slot. Okay, now we need to go fix this test because the dates are now off on this test. So this test is failing. This should be an empty list, but it's not. And while we're at it, let's see if anything else is failing. Oh, good. Just that one test. Perfect. So we'll get the dates right, and then I think that'll prove that the condition is happening the way we expect it to, and we'll be able to move on. So what dates do we want? This is saying the 26th. That is a Sunday. Let's go to this make student and see if it's expecting something specific. So it's making a school year based on the week date provided. That's fine. And we want to get, this is plugging in. So if we change this to in the middle of that week, like on the Thursday, which would be the 23rd, then I think that this passes. So let's call this Thursday. And change that. Because now the current date that we're faking is squarely inside of the week. The end date is still in the future, the 24th. So I think this should be correct. And it is. Great. All right. Sorry that took as long as it did. I didn't anticipate that logic breaking my brain so badly. Some days are easier than others, I guess, when it comes to this stuff. And then doing time math can be tricky, I suppose. So the fix was as simple as this, making sure that the week end date is in the future of today. And if it's not, display the course. Why don't we, now that we've added the code, I think now is a good opportunity to see if this is actually true or if I actually fixed the way we want it to. So if we look ahead, remember reading to was set to no days. I did that in the admin, and it's not showing up here. It was previously, it was first, and now it's not there. So now if we go into the past, here it is. Reading to is showing up. The end date doesn't match that rule, so it doesn't get to skip that line and skip over the course. And because of that, it displays the historical data, which is exactly what my spouse wanted. So I feel good about it. I feel like it's doing the right thing. So we've got a test. We've got the logic change. Let's add it to Git and commit it. And we're going to say, well, what are we going to say? Okay. Show historical courses, even if not running. Fixes number 98. And push that up. Okay. What else do we have here? We've got this next one, this progress report thing. So right now, getting back to the modeling diagram, let's look at that for a minute. Students complete tasks. That's like the core thing of what happens. A course is made up of a collection of course tasks, and when a course task is completed by a student, they can have coursework. The other thing that happens is there's also, in addition to coursework, there's this grade model. And so a course task can also be graded work. I modeled that by making a one-to-one field with the course task. So any task that has some kind of graded work with it, whether that be a test or a quiz or some sort of assignment or anything like that, will fall into this graded work category. Right now, the graded work category has no notion about type. There's no tests or quizzes or anything, but it has this general idea of anything that is a task can have associated graded work with it. And the way that will appear on the app is, we can see the icon here. This is a graded task. So if my son finishes reading Mr. Popper's Penguins, chapter 20, and there's some kind of quiz or something with it, my spouse can add a grade to it. And so the graded work is there to say, like, this task has a grade that needs to come with it. And so the manifestation of that graded work for the student is a grade. The grade is what you can see here. It is its own model. It has a foreign key to the student, a foreign key to the graded work, and a score. And then there's a unique identifier so that anybody who wants to view the specific grade can view that in the future. And so those are the fields are on it. So the request that my spouse made is, like, it would be good to be able to see all of the grades at once for a student for the school year. And that's the page that we need to add next. And we need to figure out where to put that. Right now, whoops, I turned off the web server so you can't see anything. Currently, I have a students page, and I don't think I want to put a ton of information in here. I think I want this page to be like data about configuring the students. Maybe it ultimately stores historical data. I'm not sure. What I really had in mind is a reports kind of section of the site for all of this kind of graded material. And this is temporary. Like this, my spouse may say, hey, that makes no sense. I don't really want to go to reports. I want to go to, if I'm looking for a student and want a progress report, I want to go look in the student section. I don't know yet. And so I'm going to go on this thought that we need to put a place for reports. So I'm going to create a page here that there doesn't even exist a page for this yet. If I hover over this, you can see it's just linking to the root of the site right now. So it's not doing anything. So we need a place to store reports. And then I think the first report that is going to be needed is a progress report. And so the progress report should be able to have, I think it will go by school year and by student. So that's actually, let's make sure we record that. And I don't know if we're going to do it by course, but right now I think I'm going to do it by school year. So let's say, let's add some more details to here. The progress report will show all grades for all courses for a student for a school year. It's going to be the full thing. And it'll make it a one-stop shop. It'll have a lot of data in it. It will be pulling a lot of tasks. And I'm not even sure if we might want to pull tasks that don't have a grade yet. It could just be aggregating all of the graded work and showing all of the students' grades, but there's going to be a bunch of stuff in there, so it'll be a lot to see. And it'll be looping through, okay, this student is in this grade level, so they are part of all of these courses, and that is what they'll need to see. Go course by course to give them the full report. So I think that's what we want. Implied in here, that I guess is in the description I have. So we're going to have a URL, and it's going to be like reports. And what can we say? We can say progress and a school year. School year UUID. That's probably right. And then student UUID, maybe? Yeah, that's probably okay. And because I don't think she really cares that much about the actual URLs. I just need enough information so that I know I can pull this school year, I know I can pull this student, and those two things combined should give me everything that I require. So let's put together first, before we even get to the progress section, let's put together a reports page. The reports page is not going to have anything in it except a link to progress. Yeah, I think that seems right. And I don't think that we're going to get all this done tonight. But we'll get started. I'm also debating like where do these URLs go? Because the reports, I could make an argument that because this is a school year focused item, that maybe all of the reports belong under the schools app. It's possible that reports are their own thing that are aggregating from a bunch of places, so they could be under their own app as well. There's a bunch of spots that I could put this. I'm inclined, because it has a school year UUID as like a first parameter, and I think a lot of reports may be focused around a school year, I'm going to, I think, put them in the school year app for now. And if code organization wide that doesn't make sense in the future, I can move it. It's going to be a collection of URLs, and I'm going to put it in its own unique URLs file. So I think that's fine. Okay, so that means that we need a reports page. So let's go make that. And if I'm going to make the reports live in the school year's app, then I guess I want to go to the schools test views file. That's where I'm going to put this. And we can come to the bottom here and say class test reports view. I don't like that name. It's really like an index page. It's not a collection of reports. It's a collection of types of reports, which all tree out in their own thing. So we'll say test case, and then we'll say I want to do my standard introductory test, which is make sure that only authenticated users can access this. And it's not going to require a school year. It's going to be schools. I guess it puts it in a namespace there. Is that what I want? Well, it's okay. It'll work for now. So we'll say schools reports, and then we'll delete to the end of the line. And if I run this, then it doesn't find that URL. So I'm kind of doing error-driven development of putting out my expectation for what I want, and that can lead me to the next thing. So let's come to the URLs of the whole system. It's not going to be schools reports because I'm going to hang this off of the root URL. So I'm going to give its own namespace. Schools URLs, like that's under the app name of schools, but I don't think I want that to be the case for reports. So we'll change this to reports and we'll call it the index. It is the index page for this section of the site, which makes it, nudges me towards probably putting this under its own Django app in the future, especially if there ends up being like special logic that has to go into these reports. I don't really know yet. I don't have any reports that need to come out except for a progress report right now. I know that there will ultimately be like report cards, and maybe there are PDFs that have to be generated for historical records. I'm not sure. But that's not, I don't want to get ahead of myself on what I need to produce. So there's no reports namespace, that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new section and we will put it right here. Path, reports, and it's going to be an include of homeschool schools, and this is where I'm going to just nest it right in there of report URLs for now. Or do I have any others? Yeah, that's okay. Report URLs, or should I say reports URLs? This is fine. Okay. Whoops. Syntax error. Missing a closing paren. This will still fail because that module doesn't exist. Yep. So let's come up here and I'm just going to take all of this initial stuff and yank it and create a new file and say reports or report URLs. Paste it all in there and throw in a closing thing. Now it's still going to fail because there's no index route. Also, what? Oh, wrong test. So we need to change the namespace to reports. So that at least gets us closer, but then we don't have an index view. So I could do this just to make it pass. Change that to index. Now this should pass, but it's not really what we want. So we're right now I'm plugging this view into some other view that happens to exist, but it's really not what we want. We're probably going to want a template view. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I do know that I want this index view to just be at the root of reports. I guess it's this way to you all. So it's going to be an empty string. That's good. That still passes. And then let's do a get. No, that's not a good one to do it on. I want to get check. Here's a good one. So we don't need a school year here. We just need to say reports index. And that should pass too, maybe. Oh, there's no school year, so it's doing some kind of redirect to a different page. That's because I'm cheating and using this other view, which isn't any good. So let's switch this to the reports index. And do I call those? I have other index pages. Do they call them index views or index view? It's hard to be consistent sometimes. All right. So now you can see that my text editor is noticing there's already something wrong. It's saying I can't find reports index view, and no surprise, I didn't make it. So the test will confirm that when I run it, and say can't do this because there's no report index view. But now we can go to the schools views file, and we have a template view here. No, we don't. Okay, let's add a template view. So the template view. Okay, and we'll come to the bottom, and we're going to say class and reports index view, and it's going to require the login required mixin to make sure that it manages authentication appropriately, and then it's going to be a template view. And if I do this, this will still fail, I think, because it's going to say it's missing a template. We didn't give it a template name, so we need to give it a template name. So the template name, it should be schools, and then we'll say reports index HTML. And that'll still fail because there's no template file. We're getting closer. So let's go to the templates area, and let's go to the schools directory in there. And let's just steal this one, it's fine. And we'll say reports index HTML. Paste it in. It's using the app base. We'll set the title for it. That's the title that shows up on the tab. For the moment, we'll just say reports. And we'll delete all of, well, that's not going to get it all. Okay. So we've got this very basic template that's doing almost nothing. And now the test should pass, though. Okay. The other thing we need to do is actually hook that into the navigation. So the navigation is the subnav, and there's a reports here, and it's not going anywhere yet. So you can see that these other ones, wow, that's kind of tough to see. Hold on a second. These other ones are using URL, and in this reports one, I've hard-coded it to a slash. And that was just to be a placeholder. So now we can replace this, and we can do %URL and reports index, and that should wire everything in appropriately. And now if we come back to the app and refresh the page, this now says reports. You can see it in the bottom left, the URL from the browser. We click on it, and there's nothing here yet, but it's working. Okay, so we need to give it a title. We need to let people know what page they're on. Something like this. Let's take the student's index page and copy that. And I don't even think we need to write any more tests for this. We have 2 tests that exercise that view to make sure it exists, and that's all good. So we'll take the student's index page and steal the title here. And we'll just call it reports. So if we return over here, we've got reports. Okay, so what should this page display? We could do, this is where I don't want to overthink this because I'd rather get my customer's opinion. I could ask like the structure of this. I think for the time being, what I'll probably do is say, well, I guess I could do progress reports, what's going to be useful? The useful version of this will directly link her to a progress report for the student. And we'll probably want it for the current year. So the 2020 year, which is accessible. So we can set that as the context and then take all the students and say, find all of the students that are enrolled for this school year and then link to this new page that doesn't exist yet. And that could take us directly to the progress report page. And I want to do that because I feel like that would be better than having to navigate and then navigate again. So like I could have a button that just says progress reports. And then you could go to that page and then it could have progress report for my son, progress report for my daughter. That seems like extra clicks that are kind of useless. So we do need a bit of context here. We need to get the current school year, and yeah, let's start there. All right, so I guess we actually do need some tests. I didn't think we were going to add more to this view besides a template, but I'm proving myself wrong. So let's put the school year, the current school year, into the context. So we'll say def has current school year. Okay, and copy this stuff. And then we'll say the school year is the school year factory. And school year factory like generates a school year that is in the time range of now by default. So it does create a current school year. And we're going to use a model method, I believe. Yep. Okay. So we're going to say this data can optionally be there or not. That's fine. So we'll say assert that the expected value, assert that the actual value, so the self get context, and we'll say school year, that's the key I want to put it into the context, is equal to school year. Okay, now I run that and the test is going to break because it's not there. So now we can go back to the views and actually get this. Is login a custom context manager? I'm not really sure how to answer your question, Sinster Zyme. Let me see if I can. I'll think through that. It's not a it's not a context manager like with a. Are you talking about like a Python with block? There's multiple ways to require login on a site. Oh, in my test. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm not like looking at what you're talking about, so I apologize. Yes, this login here is coming from Django Test Plus, and it is, as you say, it is a context manager. So what Django Test Plus is doing, it's doing the necessary functions to log in a user for a view, so that the built-in client, like you notice I'm not actually directly using a Django client here. I'm using Gettech 200, which comes from Django Test Plus again. So under the covers, Django Test Plus is managing the Django client, so you never have to instantiate that on your own. So the combination, this 1-2 punch of login as a context manager followed by Gettech check 200 means that the client call is happening within the context of a logged in user. Sorry, I was acting really dumb there for a minute. Okay, what do we need? We need context data in this reports index view. Yeah, no problem. And the thing we need to do is return this context. So this is the minimum of overriding. So we're overriding the superclass because we're going to add some data in here. We are dealing with a logged in view, so we can confidently say that the user is going to be an actual user. So if I do request user like this, it's not going to be an anonymous user class. It's going to be a real user. That's why I use these log required in mixins everywhere, because I always want to be dealing with users. Dealing with anonymous users, like it's fine, but I want to have very few places where I have to do that. So we're going to then use a method on the school year, a class method, and we'll assign it the context, and we'll say school year, and it's equal to school year get current year for user. And this will return an optional value, so we really should test that this can also be none and show up. I'm going to have to plan for that in the template, which is fine. Like it's a good check for the empty state anyway. But now this test should pass. Nope. Oh crap. No. Why did you not work? So here we go. I guess we're checking for the non-optimal pass from the start. Get local today. What are you? That should be 29th. I'm not affecting time. Or the 30th, I guess, is UTC. Okay. And then this did not return. Oh. I see what it is. Yep. I'm not surprised that it didn't return because I wrote the test wrong. I did a school year factory and then, but I didn't make the user the admin of that factory, of that school year. So I should be unsurprised that that didn't work. Whoops. This is the school admin. So the school year relationship is there's a school that is a foreign key above it that has, many school years can go into a school. And then there's I think it's a one-to-one field. Or no, it might be a one-to-many, but a user has a school. And they are the admin of that school. Okay, I feel much better about that now. So let's see, let's write another test for test missing school year. And let's give this a doc string. A current school year is in the context. It's probably not a super helpful doc string for this particular test, but sometimes I just like to have them anyway. Do I know C? Well, to a degree. I can read C. I have read the Kernighan and Ritchie book. I've read a bunch of C resources. I can kind of follow along tutorials, but if you were to ask me, like right now, can I write you a C program? It'd be pretty sketchy. So that's my take on C. I think if I was picking a kind of a low-level language like that these days, unless there were strong requirements to write C, I'd probably lean more towards Rust anyway. I don't know Rust super well, but I think Rust has some interesting memory management properties that I find appealing. All right, so we're going to add this extra test of a school year can be missing, a current school year can be missing. So we need to expect that that is not going to be there necessarily. But I do want to expect that the key is going to be there. So if we test this, that passes because the class method that we used in the view, get current year 4, it returns an optional school year. And if you don't know Python type checking, optional means the type or none. So it returns none. Okay, and then we have, what do we have left? So the next thing that we're going to need to do to display progress reports is find out what students are enrolled in that school year. That's where we can come back to the model, which I closed. Shoot. Let's open that up again. Sorry, should have left it open. There's this notion of enrollment, that a student is enrolled in a grade level and the grade level is attached to the school year. So we only, if there's a current school year, let's say you have 6 children. I don't know, I don't, but you could. And let's say you had them go through this tool for their schooling, and your 2 oldest kids have graduated. So they're not going to be in the current school year. So I don't want to display, here's my progress report for my eldest child when my eldest child is off to college and not doing homeschool anymore. So I think the students that I want to add to the context to display should only be the ones that are enrolled. That's what I want to find specifically. So how can we get that quickly? We have the enrollment has the grade level and the student. So we could do this. We could say, we could get the enrollments and do a select related to get the students as well. So I think the query is going to look something like this. Enrollment, objects filter, and it's going to filter on grade levels. I guess we only want to do this query when there was a school year. So when grade level school year is equal to context school year. Yeah. And then if we do a select related on that, we can get the student, so that we don't do multiple queries. Because if we did this right now and then I looped through the enrollments and then pulled out the students, then I'm going to do an n+1 query bug, because I'm going to be asking for the students, as that's really the data that I care about. The other way I could probably do this, which is probably smarter, is to do a values list. Yeah, that's probably best actually. So if we change this to a values list, whoops. So values list, and the values list that we want the student out of that. And then we want it to be in a flat structure. So values list, if you haven't used it before, is a cool Django method, and it will, it can return portions of some model. In this case, we don't actually care. I don't really care about the enrollment data. I just want the particular enrolled students. So values list gives you that nice subset. And then by default, values list will give you a list that has dictionaries with the key. So I think you can, in a values list call, you can actually ask for multiple things. If you want like a subset of things, you can get like little dictionaries that have that subset of information. But if you're only asking for one piece of information, then you can say flat, and it will take out all the dictionary extra stuff and just give you the straight up list. So that's what we need here. And we only want to do this if there is school year context. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Like otherwise, it's an extra query for nothing. So let's put that like there. And we need to get the enrollment, which will come from the students models. So from homeschool students models import enrollment. And then I'm going to put this in the context is what we want. And that should get my linter to be quiet. Okay, let's run this test and make sure I didn't have any like weird circular import errors or anything like that. Okay, so I think this is the right thing, and I haven't written a test for this yet, but that's okay. Let's see. So let's say test has enrolled students. All the enrolled students for the school year are in the context. Okay. And then to finish that off, we'll do this. We'll take this same chunk of code, and actually let's use the assert too, because that'll be a little bit faster. And we want students, and our students list is going to be a student. And so I want to actually to prove that it's only the enrolled students, or I'm going to create two students. I'm going to say the student factory, and we need to connect them to the user. No, we don't. Well, yeah, we do. We should. So let's say the student is connected through a school. So every student belongs to a school. But that just gives us a student, but that's not the one we're going to be checking for. And then we're going to use the enrollment factory. Enrollment factory to, and we are going to keep this student. And the enrollment factory grade level school year is going to be equal to the school year, like we said. And oops, that's not the that's the enrollment. So that should do the proper linking there. And then we can do enrollment.student. But we need these two factories in order to make this work, which both are in a different app. So we'll say from homeschool students tests factories, import the enrollment factory and import the student factory. Oh, okay. This was a query set rather than an actual list, so we're going to cast it to a list, which will cause the query set to resolve and just contain the data. Oh, shoot. What is it saying? 2? Well, clearly that did not, I got values list wrong. Oh, you know what it's doing? I think it's giving me the ID of the student, not the actual student. Well, shoot. All right, we'll do this one last thing and then I'm going to wrap it up for the night. Let's go to the values list documentation. Django query set values list. It's not creating the actual foreign key. I was hoping that it would like create the the model, but it's instead it's just giving the ID of the student, which makes sense why it's 2, because I created one above. That would be the counter starts over each time, and we're only running a single test. So this is student 1, and the student that's created with the enrollment is student 2. And we might need to change away from values list if this isn't going to work. Maybe we need to use, well, let's stop here. Maybe it's values that I wanted. There's a similar method called values, and struggling to remember the difference. Oh, this is returns dictionaries, so that's not what we want. And this the values list like returns the specific data. Instead of returning dictionaries, it returns tuples when iterated over. But no matter what, it's not the like fully fleshed out model, which is what I really wanted. I'm just reading some docs here to try and figure out if there's a way to salvage this. If not, I'm totally okay with doing a list comprehension. That's fine too. Okay, we'll switch to a list comprehension and it'll be okay. So we'll say enrollment. So this brings in more data than we wanted to, but there's really, yeah, I saw that. So I thought it was it says without creating a model instance, but it's referring to, in this case, the enrollment model. And because I'm specifically asking for a foreign key, I guess it's thinking, oh, you literally just want the foreign key. Most of the time when I've used values list, I've wanted it for the IDs, but I'm asking for, in that case, like ID or PK. So this was something I thought could be a novel way to get a list of actual model instances, but clearly I'm not correct. But that's fine. So we're going to do this. We're going to switch this. Instead of using values list, we'll still continue to do the select related because that's going to be important. Otherwise, we're going to have bad performance. So we'll select related on student and let black make that a prettier format. So now we have a list comprehension. So this is going to return a query set. We are still filtering on the same criteria. It's still the school year, and we're now saying the student, and then we're going through each enrollment and asking for the student. But because it was select related, all of that stuff should be loaded in memory. So this should be one query. And the test passes, great. Okay. So I think that's a good place to stop for the evening. We've been going for over an hour and a half. Next time, what I'm going to do is take this context data. I mean, there's still some stuff I want to do, like it's missing test, which I might do offline. Let's see, we test for no students when no school year. That's kind of an edge case that's missing. But what I'm going to do next time is take this context data that we've now added to this view, and then we can go over to the template and iterate over that and put out some links that will give us progress report for my son, progress report for my daughter, because they'll both be enrolled in the 2020 school year. They're both still in school. From there, we'll build up the next page and provide all of the content in that page, which will include the whole school year, each course, every task for those courses that they've done that has a grade, and display the grade right there. We'll probably put it in some kind of table and just have a big long list. In fact, we may even make it just a gigantic table for easy copy and pasting, where we repeat the course name multiple times, I might talk to my spouse about how she wants to see that data. But that's the plan. Thank you all for joining in. It's been a good stream. Some good questions aside from the spam bots like an hour ago. Whatever. It's Twitch, man, I guess. I will be streaming next Wednesday as well, doing more in this app. After we finish this feature off, which I may decide to do, frankly, offline, and then I can show you what I did. But if we don't continue that, what we're going to do next time is work on some modeling. So there's a piece of modeling that's like really core to this app that's still missing. I've got all this stuff about having courses and content that students have to do and all of that. But there's no way to take a break. There's no way to do vacation yet. And I need to add that because it's really critical for the planning purposes of the course. So we need to model that out and then start to hook it into all of these schedule building functions and methods that I made so that everything slots in appropriately. So that's going to be an important piece to tackle. I do take all this content and post it up to YouTube after the stream. So if you missed anything, want to refer back to something, you're welcome to do that. If you didn't join in at the start of the stream, I also just posted like setup instructions. So if you want to like clone this and try out the app yourself locally, you're welcome to do that. There's enough there that it's at least things you could search on if you have never done this before, and you could get your feet wet with working on a Django app that is a little bit more fleshed out than doing a tutorial yourself and just kind of poking around. I think that's it. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm MB Lehman. If you want to support me on Patreon, I'm also MB Lehman. No need to do that, of course, but I would be grateful if you do. And there's a reminder, there's a Discord below if you want to catch up with me later. But yeah, I appreciate you joining in, and have a good night. Take care.